States. Let's bring in former acting DHS Secretary Chad Wolf on this. Chad, this is specifically in the Laredo and the Rio Grande Valley sectors of the border, which are two of the most active sectors. In fact, let's put up the year-over-year change from fiscal year 20 to 21. Look at that. Laredo, it's 135% change, 136%. Rio Grande Valley, a 542% change. Is canceling the contracts for the border wall the prudent thing to be doing at this moment?
Well, absolutely not. What the Border Patrol will tell you is that they need an effective border wall system, particularly there in the Rio Grande Valley. That is ground zero where we see a lot of this surge happening. They also canceled it in the Del Rio sector. Obviously, we saw Haitians there just a couple of weeks ago. So, again, this is another step by the administration of taking away an effective measure to address that illegal entry into the United States. And so they're canceling contracts, they're not implementing MPP, and then they're issuing guidelines to ICE to not remove individuals that are here in the country illegally. So again, in the midst of the worst border crisis that we've seen in over 20 years, the administration continues to implement measures that aren't designed to address the situation, that are only going to make this crisis worse at the end of the day.
You know, folks who've been watching Fox News today will see Griff Jenkins reporting that there are some 60,000, mostly Haitian migrants, who are making their way through the Darien Gap in between Colombia and Panama, headed for the U.S. border. Don't know how many of them will make it here, but they do seem to be determined. So what the Department of Homeland Security is going to do is, as we look at the miles and miles of border wall fencing that are just sitting there being stored, which will eventually rust away or be destroyed or something. DHS is now saying, Chad, that it is going to take the money that was appropriated for border wall construction and put it toward environmental projects in the border region, including biological, cultural, and natural resource surveys. Is that a productive way to spend the money, or is that just, hey, we've got some money, we've got to spend it?
Well, it's not productive at all. Not when you're talking about border enforcement and trying to bring some rule of law back to that border. And you need to provide the resources to the men and women of the Border Patrol who are down there every day doing this job. And time again, they have been pleading with multiple administrations of building an effective border wall system. Why? Because it gives them that impedance and denial and that technology that they need along that border as a force multiplier of sorts. They don't have that now. They're obviously not getting it under this administration. And it's just one more, again, step where the Border Patrol looks at this crisis that's been going on for 8 months now and says, when does their end in sight? When are they going to change policy to address the situation? And we don't see any change in that policy. Instead, we see more migrants and more caravans approaching the border.
In the memo announcing the cancellation of the construction contracts, the DHS said, look, we want to focus on smart border technology. But when you look at what's really happening on the border with the lack of manpower to guard the border, with people just walking across those weird dams, is smart border technology the right way to address the situation as we see it now?
Well, what I would say is we need all of the above. You need the right mix of not only that physical infrastructure, obviously the personnel, as well as the technology along the border. But what the Border Patrol doesn't need is cameras and drones to tell them where individuals are crossing the border when they don't have the resources or they can't respond to them. Again, they need that impedance and denial, meaning that an individual crossing that border or wanting to cross that border is slowed down, is somehow stopped until they can get there and then apprehend that individual. So there's a multitude of ways to bring security and bring operational control back to the border, but it starts with an effective border wall system, and then you can lay on top of that the different technologies that you need.
You know, as we saw a couple of weeks ago, the only thing that stopped all those migrants from walking across that weird dam in Del Rio was when Texas DPS lined up all their cars and basically made a wall out of cars. Chad Wolf, always good to see you. Thanks for joining us today. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.